to meet everyone. My name is Bob Moore. I am currently the head of Magento Analytics, which is a new division of Magento that was created earlier this year when a company called RJ Metrics was acquired by Magento. I was the co-founder and CEO of RJ Metrics, so I have a long history working in the analytics space and business intelligence space, specifically with online merchants and service providers that help online merchants. So what I wanted to do today was just take the opportunity to introduce myself, talk a little bit about the history of my work with analytics, and then how the RJ Metrics product is going to be built into the Magento platform to help provide a better reporting and analytics experience for Magento merchants. I'm going to hop over to a PowerPoint presentation so that we can step through a few slides, and then I will also give you a live demo of the RJ Metrics product at work in case you're curious to see what that looks like. So I'll also leave some time for questions at the end, so definitely keep your questions and I will be sure to answer them. So Magento Analytics, that's me. One thing that I always like to start these presentations with is the mission statement of RJ Metrics that we founded the company on before we were acquired by Magento. And that mission is to inspire and empower data-driven people. And I think it's very important to remember that we do, as much as we love data and we're big nerds about analytics, at the end of the day, it's all about the people involved and helping actual marketers, merchandisers, executives, and others do their jobs better and be more successful. So we take a very people-centric approach to building out our product and our tools. I think the best way to understand what the RJ Metrics platform does, and by the way, RJ Metrics is being renamed Magento Analytics, so anytime you hear me say RJ Metrics or Magento Analytics, I'm actually talking about the same thing. We're just in the process of rebranding RJ Metrics to Magento Analytics. So I think one of the easiest ways to understand what Magento Analytics does is to talk about the different kinds of analytics providers that exist and which category we fall into. So all the way on the left here, you can see that one category of analytics is in-platform analytics. So these are analytics that you might see inside the admin panel of any existing system that you use. So for example, the admin panel inside of Magento, you can go to the reporting tab, you can click a button to run some reports, and you can learn a lot about what's going on inside of Magento, but you only learn about the data that is inside of Magento. If you use Salesforce.com, you can go into Salesforce, into their reporting tab and run reports, but you only learn about Salesforce. Same thing with MailChimp, same thing with Facebook ads or Google AdWords, etc. These analytics functionalities are valuable text of any individual tool, but they're not comprehensive systems that people run their whole businesses on. Typically, if you want to build out an analytics platform and create a single source of the truth around your data, you need a more comprehensive platform. Another category of analytics in the middle here is web analytics platforms. And these are very common. These are things like Google Analytics, Mixpanel, Kissmetrics, Segment is a popular category here. Web analytics platforms are very focused on events that you can capture inside the browser. So the obvious categories here are things like page views, unique visitors, time on site, things like that. If you configure these systems in a more advanced way, you can even have them capture specific events that are triggered by different activities on your site and push that data back to these systems. These are great platforms and they're really valuable. And in fact, almost every customer that we have at RJ Metrics also uses one of these platforms, but this is not what we do. We are not focused on the web event collection at the top of the funnel. We're a much more holistic solution that is more about consolidating data, which brings us to this third category, business intelligence tools. And this is where we exist. Our objective as a tool is to actually bring together data from all of these other sources. So we connect with specific individual platforms, we connect with web analytics platforms, and we join all that data into one centralized data warehouse that lives in the cloud, in Amazon Redshift. And what that allows us to do is actually access, transform, combine, and manipulate that data in a way that we can actually gain much deeper understandings of our customer base and how it is that we might acquire more customers like the best ones and the best performers in our customer base. So other players in this space, by the way, if you're using Domo or Looker or something like Tableau, if you put it on top of a consolidated data warehouse, this is more the universe of these enterprise-grade, heavy-duty business intelligence platforms. The way it works is relatively simple. We start by connecting to all of your different data sources. This is very easy for the Magento use case because Magento runs on a MySQL database typically, and connecting to that database is quite easy. We also allow you to connect to various third-party services through things like OAuth authorizations. So if you're connecting Google Analytics, for example, it's just a few clicks. You click authorize, and then we have access to the data. Once all the data is connected and consolidated, you basically are in a really good position because you have a data warehouse that contains all this data. And that's when the power of our reporting platform really comes into play, because you can actually, on day one, right out of the box with the implementation, access reports that are representative of all the best practices in the industry. So these reports include things like basic reporting around sales and customers and inventory and orders, and also more advanced analytics around things like cohort analysis, customer lifetime value, advanced customer segmentation, merchandising and marketing optimization. And then after you've used those initial reports and you monitor them over time, a lot of times seeing one report may lead you to ask another question and ask another question. This is where the real power of our platform comes in, because you can actually create ad hoc analyses. You can create analyses on the fly and ask and answer new questions all within the platform, even if you don't necessarily know how to use SQL or you don't necessarily have a lot of familiarity with any kind of language around data processing. So what we provide ultimately is this one interface to rule them all. It's data infrastructure and dashboarding all done in one platform. And our visualization interface, which I'll give you a demo of in a bit, really allows every individual user to take control of their data and learn from that data. And that means you can build custom metrics without formal training. You can invite and collaborate around your entire team. So there's not a limit on the number of people or the number of use cases that you might create for your team members. And you can dig in a lot deeper and start answering questions about things like customer lifetime value. The most common analyses that come out of the platform, marketing ROI is a really big one. So what is the return on investment of my marketing dollars being spent? And this is really a great example of the power of combining data, because a good marketing ROI analysis might require data from your Magento database to understand a transaction history and customer lifetime value, data from all your different advertising platforms to let you know how many dollars you spent per channel and per advertising campaign, along with other data about potentially what the user's experience in the funnel might have been. Did they interact with your customer support group? Did they visit certain pages on your website? Being able to segment by all these dimensions on the marketing ROI side can allow you to identify very specific populations that do or don't perform well. And when we talk about performing well, that's where customer lifetime value comes into play. Your return on investment in marketing is not always just about how much people buy on their first purchase. It's about how likely they are to come back and purchase again and what the true lifetime relationship value is for you with those customers. Some of the other benefits here, a lot of our customers will use the Magento Analytics platform to do executive and investor reporting. So it can be very annoying if an investor or stakeholder contacts you unexpectedly and asks for the answer to a very specific question. This is a great way to deliver the answers to those questions easily, or even give them access to the dashboard so that they can go and conduct those analyses themselves. And then there's a whole universe of specific analyses around customer cohorts, merchandising, B2B, holiday reporting that all come into play once you're in the platform. So we price the product on a monthly basis. Right now our subscriptions start at $750 US per month. And we have hundreds and hundreds of clients across the Magento ecosystem using the product. Over the course of the coming quarters, we're going to be releasing more and more functionalities and tiers of the product that we plan to make it accessible really to everybody in the ecosystem. But for merchants who want to make a real investment in analytics, you can get started for this kind of rate. So with that said, I want to hop into the live demo and show you the product itself. Share the right screen here. Great. So right now you are looking at the actual Magento Analytics product. We'll spend a little bit of time on these dashboards soon, but what I want to do first is actually walk you through the life cycle of a data point inside the system so that you can understand where this data actually comes from and how the data gets loaded in. So what I want to do is actually go over to our data menu here and start with our data connections. So in this particular instance, you can actually view all of the data sources that are currently connected and also add additional data sources. So right now, this particular instance of Magento Analytics is really just connected to one data source. It's connected to a Postgres backend database, and that database is called Vandelay. And it is showing a successful status here and showing that it's synced data. This particular one synced a little while ago. The nice thing about this is that you can go into this menu and actually add new data sources at any point in time. So you can add databases. We support both SQL-based databases along with MongoDB as a NoSQL source and some other data warehouses. You can push data to our API. We even support other e-commerce platforms. If you're migrating from Shopify to Magento, for example, you might want to pull in data from your old instance and your new instance so that you have a consistent view on your reports. We also allow for connections to different advertising platforms, customer support platforms like Desk.com and Zendesk, billing and finance platforms like Zora, Stripe, and QuickBooks and Square, and a number of other business optimization connections. So connecting one of these is very simple. MySQL, for example, you're really just putting in basic host and if you prefer to encrypt the connection, you can do so. So it's really some relatively basic SSH tunnel and a MySQL read-only user is all it takes. It usually takes people 5 minutes or less to get this set up. And then once the data is connected, then you get to really do the fun stuff, which is connecting to this data warehouse page where you can view all the data that's available and bring it into your system. So in this particular case, this connection, we have synced all of these tables. So these have been pulled over into the data warehouse, and these are the tables of data that we're able to build reports on top of. If we wanted to pull in more tables, we could just toggle over to all tables here, and you can see there's actually an enormous list of tables on this connection that you could go and explore. But right now, we'll stick with the tables that we've already synced. And within any one of these tables, you can click on it for details, and you can view every column that exists within the tables, what kind of data it is, and some of the preferences around how that data gets synced and kept up to date. The other thing that is really neat is that you can add custom calculated columns to these tables that become available as dimensions when you're building charts later. So if you want to create a column that is perhaps something that is based on a join that exists with another table or some kind of calculation that you might want to do, you can actually do that inside the interface here, and it will create that column inside your data table. So once you've got these data tables all set up, then you head over to the metrics page. And what the metrics page allows you to do is actually go in and explore all of the different data definitions that exist inside of your account, so that you can then understand how to build charts without needing to write SQL. So for example, you might have a revenue metric or a number of orders metric that is very much just based on a simple SQL query. The number of orders is just a count on the orders table on the column of order ID, and when these orders happen is based on the created at timestamp. All very, very simple. There's a filter set here that filters out any kind of test orders or other things. You can set that up on another page. And then the exciting thing is all of these dimensions that become available within the metrics. So a lot of these are columns that exist natively within the table, but some of them are these calculated columns that we built on the last screen. So when we go to build a chart in a moment, you'll see how these become really powerful. And in this particular account, you can see the merchant has a number of different metrics set up, and charts can be built on top of all these metrics. Okay, so let's hop over into the actual dashboard, into the fun part. And what we're going to do here, really quickly, by the way, in the context of any dashboard, and when you get the product initially, you automatically get a number of dashboards that are set up like this one with analyses that are very obvious that you might need. You can do all the things in the dashboards that you might hope you might want to do. So you can drag and resize them and they automatically reorganize. Back out again. You can drag and drop and they'll automatically reconfigure themselves appropriately. So it's very modular, very customizable. Within the interface of any specific chart here, you can click and drag and zoom into specific sizes and zoom back out. And then you can also view notes that might have been put together by any of your team members about specific ways to interpret the charts. And it might also be helpful to see here which metrics are being calculated and used in the data that's involved. So let's go in and actually build a chart here. So let's add a report. We'll create a new report from scratch. Now, when you first go to build a new report, you actually have a few options as to how you can build it. We have 3 report builders available. The most commonly used one is our visual report builder. That's what we'll use today. But I want to point out this SQL report builder. This is actually a really powerful tool for people that understand how to write SQL. It basically gives you the ability to write SQL queries directly against that back-end data warehouse without any of the metrics or other intermediate abstractions. So if you prefer to just work in SQL and write queries directly and iterate on them in that way, that's totally fine. You can use this report builder and generate reports that way. What we're going to do is use the visual report builder, which is most commonly used by business users. So here we are in the report builder interface. The first thing we want to do is add a metric. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We saw these metrics on the metrics page earlier. Let's look at, for example, the number of orders metric here. So when we add that metric, automatically what happens is we get a default report built out that shows this metric by month throughout all time. So we're midway through a month here, so we've got about half a month's data in November, but we see this steady growth going on. And beneath that chart, you can always view the data in a tabular format if you ever want to go explore it there. You can manipulate the time periods very easily. If you wanted to view this by quarter, for example, very easy to change. If you wanted to see a specific range, like the last 90 days, and then actually view that data by day, it's very easy to just change the time options and get the time period that you want. There are also, as you can imagine, a number of different visualization methods that you can use here to present the data in various fashions. I'm going to stick with a line chart here because it makes the most sense for this analysis. So this is a fairly basic metric. It's just how many orders you had per day. The real insights start to come in when you start to filter the data in different ways. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to click filters so that we can apply some filters to this chart that we've built. And let's take a look at this data, but only look at it when customer's order number is equal to 1. And what that means is now when we apply these changes, we are actually only looking at the orders that are customers' first orders. So it's not the total number of orders for the business, it's first time orders. So that's interesting to look at, but it might be even more interesting for us to say, duplicate this, and then also look at repeat orders. And the way we would do that is simply by setting this duplicated metric to only show cases where the order number is greater than 1. So we'll apply those changes, view it all on one axis here. call this repeat orders. And now we've got this view where we can see on a day-by-day basis for the last 90 days how many repeat orders came in and how many first-time orders came in. And this is interesting, but maybe we want to view one as a percentage of the total. We can actually add a formula here and manipulate these data points relative to each other. So we can see here that A is first-time orders, B is repeat orders. Maybe we want to see B divided by A plus B, and we want to view that as a percent. And we might call this repeat percentage. And we'll close this guy, and we'll hide the original 2 data points. And now we've just built a chart that we can view here that shows us on a day-by-day basis the percentage of the orders that came in that are from repeat purchasers. Now this starts to get really interesting because now that we've calculated this, we can, for example, let's change our time period back to months, and let's look at this throughout the entire history of the business. So now we've zoomed out, and you can see over time in the course of the business the growth in the contribution to revenue of repeat purchases, and then it has kind of stabilized around the 60% mark. And it's been there steadily since about 2014. And this is a really interesting insight, and it might drive you to ask the question of how is it that this number has not grown? It's very easy to then go in and create another chart or a metric to view the dollar signs, the quantity, and see if this is a result of steady growth in both one outgrowing the other or some other effect. The other neat thing you can do here is you can group by a number of different attributes. So now that we've built this out, say we want to, for example, I'm not sure where there's data here, but if we had a number of marketing campaigns, for example, so we've only got 2 here, no campaign and this 7-month reactivation campaign, but you could actually segment out the data into these different campaign values in order to understand the repeat purchase rate based on the channel that the person came in through. And that's where it starts to really get interesting and valuable. But for now, we'll leave it at this percentage. We'll say percent of orders from repeats. And we will save that right to the dashboard that we were just on. We can go to that dashboard, and you will see that our new chart has been inserted, and it'll be there and viewable anytime you log in, and it'll automatically update as your data continues to change over time. The other one thing that I just want to point out here is you can go into any one of these charts and click edit, and it will bring up the editor in which it was built. You can also save the charts, you can export the data to CSV or Excel, and you can access all this data through our API. So our API will allow you to push data in and also pull data out from our system, making it very easy to programmatically access and change the data. And the final thing I'll show you here is just around collaboration. This particular dashboard is a shared dashboard. What you can see when your company is set up is an account for every team member at your company and the ability to share this dashboard with them and give them either viewing rights or editing rights on it. And this allows for teams to collaborate around shared dashboards, but also allows individuals to keep private dashboards if they wish to have dashboards just themselves. So with that said, that completes the demo, and I hope gives you a good sense of what happens inside the platform. I think the really important thing to share is just that now that we are a part of Magento, we are making really big investments into making sure that this product integrates very, very well with the Magento product and very easily with the Magento product. So we've already got, as I mentioned, we've worked with hundreds of Magento merchants over the years. We are very much a preferred vendor even before the acquisition in terms of helping Magento merchants do more with their data. What our acquisition means is that we can move faster, we have more resources, and we can offer more and more products as time goes on that are going to help Magento merchants use data better and smarter. And that's something that I'm really excited about. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.